well, Donald Trump is going to make his glorious return to Facebook. I would assume sometime in the near future. Facebook has now released a statement saying that his 2-year ban is over. Now, you'll recall that when Elon Musk took over Twitter, he unbanned Trump, but Trump is on Truth Social. It would undercut his own profitability. In order for him to leave Truth Social and move over to Twitter, he'd basically have to admit that Truth Social is a dud. He hasn't done that as of yet. I would assume sometime in the near future, if in fact he wishes to run a presidential campaign, he's going to have to go where the eyeballs are and move over to Twitter. But Facebook, again, you'll remember, banned Trump in coordination with Twitter and with the other social media networks. They did that immediately after the events of January 6th, claiming based on unspecified breaches of their protocol that Trump had to be banned. Now, they admitted at the time that he hadn't actually done anything to formally break any of their rules. He hadn't harassed anybody. He hadn't actually said anything that was racist to the point that it could get him banned. He had not violated any of the guidelines that Facebook had laid forth. However, they said totality of the circumstances led them to ban Trump, which was basically just a statement that they felt like banning him, and so now they were going to ban him. Well, now they're unbanning him, but they're setting conditions. And this shows you the evils of social media. It shows you the vagaries of the people who are setting the rules. And unlike Twitter, where Elon Musk is basically just saying, listen, I'm doing this, off the top of my head. You want to blame me, go for it. Facebook pretends that they have procedures and protocols, and then they hide behind those procedures and protocols to do whatever the hell that they want. And that is, in fact, a lot more threatening, because when you give the patina of objectivity, the patina of algorithmic objectivity to a subjective decision to ban prominent people, what you are actively doing is deceiving the public. Musk is not deceiving the public. When he says this person is banned, this person is readmitted, you at least know who to write the letters to. When it is Meta, when it was Twitter before Musk, that was a whole different thing. And so now Facebook is claiming they have a new set of guidelines that they're going to put on Donald Trump that's going to make it easy to ban him again, should they see fit to do so. So they put out a very long statement via Nick Clegg, the president of Global Affairs. He is the guy who is responsible for banning Trump in the first place. And he says this, quote, social media is rooted in the belief that open debate and the free flow of ideas are important values, especially at a time when they are under threat in many places around the world. As a general rule, we don't want to get in the way of open public and democratic debate on Meta's platforms, especially in the context of elections in democratic societies like the United States. The public should be able to hear what their politicians are saying, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so they can make informed choices at the ballot box. But, and as MC Hammer might say, here comes the big but. That does not mean there are no limits to what people can say on our platform. When there is a clear risk of real-world harm, a deliberately high bar for Meta to intervene in public discourse, we act. What exactly does that mean? Here's where you get into the vagaries of statements like this. A clear risk of real-world harm. Well, you're not saying that Donald Trump actively incited people on January 6th, because the legal standard for incitement is he has to tell people, I want you to go and invade the Capitol building on January 6th. And the standard can't even be, he said something that's generally inflammatory, because if that were the standard, you would have to ban Kamala Harris for bailing people out of jail who were rioting, or half the Democratic politicians in America for lying about what happened with George Floyd by suggesting that it was racially driven. Again, no matter what you think happened with George Floyd, there's one thing that is certain. There is no evidence whatsoever that the killing of George Floyd had anything to do with race. That evidence was never presented. Every single Democrat suggested, because they were part of the Black Lives Matter moment, that that killing had something to do with race. I didn't see Facebook stepping in, despite the $2 billion in property damage that were done during the riots. So what exactly does that mean? A clear risk of real-world harm. What it means is we are going to just say there's a clear risk of real-world harm when we're looking for an excuse to ban somebody. So the statement from Clegg continues, quote, 2 years ago, we took action in what were extreme and highly unusual circumstances. We indefinitely suspended then U.S. President Donald Trump's Facebook and Instagram accounts following his praise for people engaged in violence at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. This presumably would have been the same day that he also told them to go home. And also the same day he told them beforehand that they should protest peacefully at the U.S. Capitol building. We then referred that decision to the Oversight Board, an expert body establishing an independent check and balance on our decision-making. The board upheld the decision, but criticized the open-ended nature of the suspension and the lack of clear criteria for when and whether suspended accounts will be restored, directing us to review the matter to determine a more proportionate response. In response to the board, says Clegg, we imposed a time-bound suspension of 2 years from the date of the original suspension on January 7, 2021, an unprecedented length of time for such a suspension. It was indeed unprecedented, and you had no real excuse for saying 2 years. You picked it out of a hat. It is worth noting here that when they decided they were going to ban Trump in January of 2021, and then later decided it would be a 2-year ban, that was just in time for them to unban Trump just before the 2024 election cycle, presumably. Quote, we also clarified the circumstances in which accounts of public figures could be restricted during times of civil unrest and ongoing violence. and introduced a new crisis policy protocol to guide our assessments of on and off platform risks of imminent harm so we can respond with specific policy and product actions. Now, notice again that they say that they have a protocol to guide their assessment of on and off platform risks of imminent harm. So if you don't even do something on Facebook, but you do something off of Facebook, now they're saying that if there is a clear risk of danger off of Facebook, they can ban you on Facebook for that, which makes them sort of like God. Right? There is no actual barrier between what you are doing in the rest of your life and Facebook seeing that and then banning you on platform for something you did well off the platform. They also said that before making any decision on whether or not to lift Trump's suspension, we would assess whether the risk to public safety has receded. Now, again, what does that even mean, the risk to public safety has receded? Literally receded the day of. You know when the risk to public safety receded? When the cops went in and arrested everyone and hundreds of them went to jail. That would have been the time the public safety was now restored. But apparently it took 2 years for the risk to recede. So it seemed like a great idea at the time to put a satanic statue of RBG atop a building. But if this puts you in mind of, fighting Satan, perhaps you might think about praying. You might think about the importance of faith. You might think about hallow. Just like physical exercise, daily spiritual exercise is critical to your well-being, especially in a world where they're putting satanic statues of Ruth Bader Ginsburg in favor of abortion on the top of New York courthouses. Hallow helps you maintain a daily prayer routine. It is filled with studies, meditations, and reflections that are rooted in Judeo-Christian prayer practices. You can pray alongside Mark Wahlberg, Jim Caviezel, and even some world-class athletes. You can access the #1 Christian podcast, Bible in a Year, with Father Mike Schmitz on Hallow as well. Set prayer reminders, invite others to pray with you, and track your progress along the way. Again, we are living in an increasingly godless world. Try to bring God back into your life, particularly if you're a Christian. Try Hallow for 3 months free at hallow.com/Shapiro. That's Hallow, HALLOW.com/Shapiro to get started today. These Facebook standards are nonsense. They cannot be trusted. And you know who else can't be trusted? The Biden administration with your money. I mean, it's just that simple. Right now, the Federal Reserve is playing games with monetary policy. This has been true for the last several years. The debt ceiling now exceeds $31.4 trillion, and inflation is still above 7%. We are seeing layoffs at major companies throughout the United States. So here's the question. Do you trust the government with your savings in your retirement plan? For 5,000 years, gold has been the best hedge against the government screwing with this sort of stuff. This is why you should check out my friends over at Birch Gold. Consider converting your IRA or 401k into an IRA in precious metals. You can talk to the experts at Birch Gold. They've got an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, thousands of happy customers, countless 5-star reviews. Text BEN to 989898. Claim your free info kit on gold. Then talk to one of their precious metal specialists. When you purchase from Birch Gold by January 31st, you'll get a signed copy of my book, How to Destroy America in 3 Easy Steps. Text BEN to 989898. Claim your free info kit. Get a signed copy of my book. That's BEN to 989898 today. You got to find a way to hedge against the government taking advantage of you, whether they are inflating the currency or they're just screwing around with the regulations on the market. One of the best ways has always been precious metals. Text BEN to 989898 and get started today. They say this, Facebook. The suspension was an extraordinary decision taken in extraordinary circumstances, which is an easy way of saying we just did it as a knee-jerk reaction. The normal state of affairs that the public should be able to hear from a former president of the United States and a declared candidate for that office again on our platforms. Now that the time period of the suspension has elapsed, the question is not whether we choose to reinstate Trump's account, but whether there remain such extraordinary circumstances that extending the suspension beyond the original 2-year period is justified. To assess whether the serious risks to public safety that existed in January 2021 has sufficiently receded, we have evaluated the current environment according to our crisis policy protocol, which included looking at the conduct of the U.S. 2022 midterm election and expert assessments on the current security environment. Now, we don't know who these experts were. We have no idea how that determination was done. We don't know exactly what factors went into that consideration. I'm pointing out all the vagaries here because in the end, it is a bunch of Democrats at Facebook who are deciding who to ban. In the end, that's what this is. And they can pretend that it's algorithmic. They can pretend they can hide behind the computers. They can pretend that it's all AI. It is not. It is a bunch of people who are setting policy, and they are doing so in completely arbitrary fashion. Or, if you're a partisan, completely non-arbitrary fashion. They say that the risk has sufficiently receded and that we should therefore adhere to the 2-year timeline we set out. But they say Trump is subject to our community standards. In light of his violations, he now faces heightened penalties for repeat offenses, penalties which will apply to other public figures whose accounts are reinstated from suspensions related to civil unrest under our updated protocol. In the event that Trump posts further violating content, the content will be removed. He will be suspended for between 1 month and 2 years, depending on the severity of the violation. Our updated protocol also addresses content that does not violate our community standards, but that contributes to the sort of risk that materialized on January 6th, such as content that delegitimizes an upcoming election or is related to QAnon. So this policy is a total mess. It's a total and absolute cluster. When they say content that delegitimizes an upcoming election, how about, say, content that suggests that Georgia's voting law is Jim Crow 2.0. That delegitimizes an upcoming election. If you claim that there's going to be widespread voter suppression and that this is going to lead to skewing of the results, let's say you're Stacey Abrams and you say this over and over and over and over. Does that mean that you're going to get banned on Facebook? I think not. And this sort of policy is really overbroad and also really specific to Donald Trump. We may limit the distribution of such posts, they say, for repeated instances, may temporarily restrict access to our advertising tools. This would mean that content would remain visible on Trump's account, but would not be distributed in people's feeds, even if they follow Trump, so they would essentially shadow ban him. We may also remove the reshare button from such posts, so they would prevent you from even being able to share what Trump is saying, and may stop them being recommended or run as ads. In the event that Trump posts content that violates the letter of the community standards, but under our newsworthy content policy, we assess there is public interest in knowing that Trump made the statement that outweighs any potential harm, we may similarly opt to restrict the distribution of such posts, but leave them visible on Trump's account. So again, this is all it's a complete mess. So they think it's newsworthy content and it outweighs potential harm, but they could theoretically, they could just restrict the distribution of the post. They say, we publish our community standards publicly so everyone can see where we draw that line. Our policies sometimes require reconsideration and revision. We are highlighting these rules today because we anticipate that should Trump choose to resume activity on our platforms, many people will call for us to take action against his account and the content he posts, while many others will be upset if he is suspended again, or if some of his content is not distributed on our platforms. We want to be as clear as possible now about our policies. This is about as clear as mud, and it's meant to be as clear as mud. It is not going to actually stop any of the problems that Facebook faces. If they ban Trump again, the right will properly be quite upset. If they do not ban Trump again, the left will be absolutely enraged. So instead, what you're going to see is a selective attempt to shut down particular messages coming from Trump's account. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show is continuing right now. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be getting into Disney shutting down Splash Mountain over racism, of course. Plus, Democrats may be cruising for a bruising in the Senate in 2024. If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click the link in the description and join us.